But especially the reason why we want to give Carl Welty his due is one thing is he did not like to fly. So he didn't travel. So not many people know about Carl Welty, and I think more people should. And and another thing was he just did, pretty egoless, right? He really accolades weren't his thing. He wasn't looking to be named, the best teacher in the section, or even though he was,
Yeah.
best in the US, top 100 teacher for many years. He didn't seek that out. So but it's great that we got together and highlighted the career of Carl Welty, and I hope that everybody got a little something out of it and enjoyed
We
the
can't stop,
discussion.
Joe. Don't cut it down, please. It
Okay.
sounds like you're trying
Well-
to shut this down. The credits can't come up yet. I have
Okay,
another.
let's keep it going.
I want Joe. We got Joe P. We got Joe
I
Pretorius on.
know. Let's
go
go all night. Let's go. We can edit.
So-
I'm good at editing.
So listen, because you and I know Joe's backstory, the people watching do not.
All right, let's hear it.
I'm hoping that Joe will share with everyone. His backstory is that he was Jimmy Chipwood before, well, maybe after Jimmy Chipwood. For the guys that don't know Jimmy Chipwood, go watch Hoosiers.
Hoosiers, yeah.
So Joe Pretorius was an awesome basketball player in the state of Indiana. And Joe, when I'm misspeaking, let me know. But he didn't have any golf experience. He didn't play golf really in high school. He was really all about basketball. And then I'm going to let Joe tell the story. Obviously, Joe had an interest for golf and wanted to learn all he could. Mm-hmm. And he ended up at the Jim McLean Golf School with Joe Roach and myself. And I want him to tell the story of how he got to the Jim McLean Golf School. Joe, do you mind telling the audience that?
Yeah, it might inspire some young kids that are trying to chase their golf passions. So as a youth, I spent a lot of time understanding the technique of shooting at the basketball at the highest level. I got lucky as in high school and had a New Jersey net shot doctor spend some time at our school with a family that brought him in to work with his son, and so it really opened up my eyes to some things technique wise that made me better as I just spent time with in the gym. My mom was an elementary school teacher, so I had the gym key, and I literally lived in the gym. And I've made I don't know 270 free throws in a row before. I've made about 70 3-pointers in a row before, just doing shooting in a gym, and I got to and it was all attributed to technique. I mean, it's not that I could have practiced hours and hours the wrong stuff and I'd have never got accomplished at shooting a basketball. So as I got into my later college years, I started playing golf. I played a little bit of baseball when I was in high school, and so I had some what I thought was a good start ability to understanding what swinging a club should feel like, and because I knew that the technique was the magic of shooting the basketball, I became just entranced with gaining knowledge, reading books, watching videos. I picked up, I just educated myself, and I spent 3 years out of college after achieving a master's degree in accounting with the public accounting firms, and I was single at the time, and I was about 25 years old at the time, and I had this itch, this golf bug like everybody else gets bit by, and I was shooting probably in the lower 80s at that point, and the mid 80s, and I just was like, I'm gonna go.
After what age did you start again? When did you start first with golf?
I would say I was a 22-year-old in my master's year of college when I really started playing golf. And looking back, I would have been not going to the library room and not watching all the videotapes and just really playing golf for a couple of years. And now knowing what I know the hard way, is of, I took the analytical approach. I want to know everything I can about the golf swing, and I should have played a couple of years before I really dove into that. But but as a 25-year-old, I wrote letters to the big names that I picked up through just by educating myself. So I wrote David Ledbetter's Academy. I wrote the Harmons. I wrote Hank Haney in Texas, and I wrote Jim McLean, and sent letters out to all of them and just expressed who I was as a person, that I had this passion in golf, and I could be an assistant, and if you give me a shot, I just want to be around the information, and I actually wrote Jimmy Ballard too. I don't want to forget him. So out of all those letters, I sent them more than once. I got one response from, and I need to bring this guy's name up. His name is John O'Neill. He's one of the most important people in my story, and
Mm.
he put the letter up out of PJ West. It was the Jim McLean Golf School. He called me and said, I read your story. It moved me, and I have a spot for a guy that just wants to come out and be an assistant, and you'll learn as you go. And so I flew out, met him on a weekend just to make sure I wasn't getting myself into something that's over my head, and because I wanted him to see me hit a golf ball to make sure that I can do this, and
Mm.
so he watched me hit a few shots that weekend and said, you can do this, and you're far enough along, and so I left public accounting, and basically, I was single at the time, and it was the best decision of my life, to be honest. I got to meet you guys. I got to meet all these instructors, and spend time at PJ West for 3 winters. I spent 2 summers in Grand Traverse at the Jim McLean Golf School in Michigan, and I spent the third summer in a Chicago golf setting around a premier golf club there, and it was exactly what I hoped it would be. I was around in the information, and it's just, it made it hard to get better because I wasn't at your guys' level when I got there. Because kind of like you guys said, you had different approaches and different philosophies, and that you got to see all that. And should I spend time as a video guy, or should I spend more time not, just trying to learn the game through feel? So that was the balancing act of trying to learn how to teach. I became an excellent teacher because of the information. I stand by that. But as a player, I got in the 70s. I got to shoot par a few times, but I never got to the level of you guys, and that's then that didn't, it meant something back then, but now, being older in life and kind of knowing what that experience really was, you can't put a value on that.
Joe was so old school.
Yeah.
Back then, I remember, Joe, you would hit your share of balls, right?
Oh man.
I mean, till
Yeah.
your hands
My
bled, right? It's literally.
Yeah.
Okay, but
they used to
Alex,
call me
Alex, so
BJ.
you and VJ. So Alex, I'd pick up Joe's club in his grips. It was like somebody sprayed WD-40. They were so worn. And Joe, you've got to go. We had the club repair people on the other side of the range. Joe, go get your clubs regripped.
Yeah.
No, he not until I break 70. Right? That's what you tell me.
Yeah, it was and I got to spend time around good players like you guys, and it was interesting. I wouldn't say it was a little frustrating because I was trying to keep up and I couldn't keep up, and but at the same time, I also was realistic, and but again, years later, I think the thing I would change the most, I would spend less time hitting range balls and more time playing, and that probably benefited me. I can add my Lee Trevino story because that's probably the best story I got.
Please share.
That is priceless. I had a roommate who knew the club pro at PJ West. Lee Trevino was in a top flight commercial. They needed a stand-in golfer to hit the TV commercials ball on the green that's right behind my picture. That's the 17th green, and it was $350 that this stand-in golfer was gonna get paid, and we needed rent. We needed rent that month. And so I was living with a gentleman named Zach, and he said, "Joe's your guy. He's the right height and the hair color," and I was. So I showed up, got in a trailer from I suppose Los Angeles Hollywood people putting makeup all over me, and I got to that green, and they called me the sharpshooter and handed me 3 balls and said that would be enough, right? And this reminded me this was year 1 of my experience out there, and I'm still learning the game, and I said, well, I might need more than 3, but we'll see how it goes. And they told me during the shoot that Lee Trevino would not be standing beside me. His body double would. Well, when I got up to hit the shots, Lee was a very talkative person, and I hear him coming. He said, "I don't need to stand in. I can stand right by this guy." And he stood 2 feet from me as I was hitting these 3 balls, shaking like a leaf, I'm sure. And I managed to get the 3rd one on target and in the line that they needed. And then the sun went down right behind the cloud, and I thought I had got it done. And man, I was nervous. I had to have been just so nervous. And it took me a couple more shots to get the ball to land on the green in the sunlight that they needed. But I probably hit total 6 shots, as if I recall. But the thing that I remember the most about that story, Lee said, "How about I do this?" And he took my 6 out, and in one shot hit it 2 feet from this. I mean, literally almost hold it out. And
On Alcatraz, 17. It was on the 17th.
Yeah, the one right behind my head there, that picture, and he was chatting the whole time. I still have this 6-iron today.
Wow.
But Lee Trevino, he took my 6-iron and in one swing took a shot that was magical.
I will say, Joe, I've been on YouTube, maybe more than once, trying to find that commercial, typing in all different ways to find it.
Yeah,
I can't find that commercial. I found a lot of other top flight commercials, but I can't find yours.
I did get to see it on the TV a few times when I was, back in that era, and I should have recorded it, but yeah, you don't ever get to really see me. You see me swinging, and then the commercial goes right to where the ball's landing. But my parents thought that was all right.
We need to dig deeper. We need to find that, uncover that. One thing that, since we're keeping this going, one thing that is interesting that you said is you would have played more as opposed to hit balls. Yep. And that's the one thing sometimes I say, now I'm teaching at a range currently, and I have for a number of years. But it's the one sport where we train a lot away from the field of play. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of odd, isn't it, when you think about it?
Yeah, I think the video serves more value when the player can kind of behave on a golf course without the video and helping narrow down the focus. It depends on where they are as accomplished players. I mean, there's got to be a balance, because you can spend hours on the range doing the wrong things, and the video will solve it pretty quickly. Whereas
Carl preferred to be on the course.
Yeah.
Didn't he?
With the video, he always wanted the video, but yeah, he wanted to be on the course.
Yeah. And the unique thing too is Jim McLean. We have to give a shout out to Jim. He was great to all of us. Of course, we weren't making any money, like you said, but it's more about the people that we met and the people and the information we were, able to attain. I remember the meetings we had every Tuesday night. Jim was adamant about getting everybody on the same page so that we were all teaching similarly, even though we had our differences. So Jim has been a great support to a lot of us, guys that were sort of, coming along, and so thanks to Jim McLean.
Yeah,
for sure.
Right.
I think Jim's story was that he went around to all these top teachers and was learning himself how to teach at the highest layer. And then when he came across Carl Welty, he said, "Aha, I found something that nobody else is doing." And then him and Carl turned into this lifelong relationship.
I
believe Jim paid. Sorry.
No, go.
I believe Jim paid.
I know where you're going. I think
go through Jimmy Ballard's golf school 3 times.
I think more than that. I think
He
7 or 8.
He signed up like everyone else, paid his fee, and went through his golf school just because he wanted the experience. And that speaks volumes about Jim's modesty and his drive to learn as much as he can. Right?
Yeah, I think he was at Sleepy Hollow at the time in the Mets section, and he would organize a trip with his members down to Jimmy Butler was teaching at that time at Doral. So yeah, they would go down there. I think a handful of times, like you said, Alex, he would go down and take that school along with his members. Jim was an accomplished player too. He played in a Masters, right? Played at the University of Houston.
Yeah.
With I think Freddie
Teammates with
Couples.
Litsky.
Loved Litsky. That was sad to see Litsky pass way too young. Litsky is an interesting case. Took that club right, he kind of inside at the start, but had great body motion. Litsky said one thing that is probably the most interesting thing that any player has said. And he said it in an interview, and I haven't heard anything. I actually emailed Jim one time about it. He didn't get back to me. Maybe I'll ask him again. But Bruce Litsky said that he would look at himself from above and watch himself swing, which was, I don't know, it's kind of wild, but
how can you do that?
He had some kind of, I swear I heard it. He was able to sort of outside himself, sort of watch himself swing. It was just kind of like you were talking about earlier, just the genius of these amazingly talented, best in the world players. They just work in mysterious ways.
Yeah, I remember carrying balls out to Bruce Litsky on our driving range because he was there to practice for the Bob Hope Classic, and I remember carrying a full club caddy of balls out there, and he kind of chuckled at it. Oh, I don't need that many. And literally, he spent probably maybe an hour there, but he would take his time in between each shot. I mean, he was in no hurry to hit a bucket of balls. I mean, and he hit several, but it was on his pace and certainly did not over practice.
I did that to Dottie Mockery. I was a kid. I was working at a local club that hosted an LPGA event, and I had the big bucket. And I come over to Dottie, and she laughed at me like probably Bruce laughed at you. She said, "No, if I hit that many balls, I wouldn't be able to play 4 rounds of this tournament." So it's pretty funny.
I remember while we're telling stories, we had Fred Funk there, and he wanted video work. He brought myself and another assistant in the video room just to help us. We were just happened to be there that afternoon, and we were running the video camera for him. And I remember him asking me and the other assistant, "What do we think?" And the rule there as assistants is we're not allowed to think anything for a PGA Tour player. And if you want us to think, we're going to need to grab a master instructor. So then he got more specific and said, "Well, what do you think about the grip in general? What does the Jim McLean Golf School promote as far as the grip?" And of course, we've spent time around Carl Welty, and so we knew that the knuckles of the but there were 3 knuckles that lined up, and it was a combination of the left hand and the right hand. And I just kind of mentioned that's one of the big deals here that you may not hear out there in the regular teaching world. That's something that's been studied here, and it's been proven. And I remember just leaving it at that, and then I'm outside, doing my duties as an assistant, and I look down at the end of the range where Fred Funk is practicing, and he's out there literally looking at his knuckles before he's taking swings, and I got nervous because oh my gosh, that I might get myself in trouble here. But thank goodness it must have went well because nothing was ever said negatively. But boy, that was no. And
That was a close one.
one thing I did as an assistant was I was teeing up balls for Lynn Matisse
Mm.
the week before he was the Masters runner-up in a playoff against Mike Weir. So Jim McLean was there teaching him, and I was on my hands and knees teeing up balls for this lesson, and I said nothing, but I was in that lesson, and as the video guy and as just doing whatever Jim needed, and literally 10 days later he almost won the Masters. I it's hard to believe, but
Incredible.
Yeah,
I think the three of us could do a half dozen shows just talking about Jim McLean Golf School stories.
man.
Who we saw, there's so many of them.
Yeah, Joe, I think going back, I agree. Going back to what you said, I think we need to come up with some kind of pamphlet about those commonalities. Maybe another time we could discuss those commonalities of all those great players that you talked about that Carl determined. Because then once you know the commonalities, then you can allow for the differences versus chasing the differences at the expense of what's sort of primary. Because as teachers, we always struggle with sort of the root cause, what to work on first, what to let go, what to sort of insist on. I know Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, but Alex, you're insisting on how we place how your students place your hands on the club. So like when we were at the Jim McLean School, real quick, Alex, hold that thought 1 second. I just want to say, when we were at the McLean School, what Jim stressed a lot was system over method. So Jim allowed for some differences within corridors, whereas maybe some other teachers went by more of a method. But in fairness to those other teachers, I get why they went more toward the method, because you just sometimes don't know what to sort of, I call it in my mind these days, I'm calling it insist on the player do versus allow the player to do, and maybe it's just their sort of style. So it's difficult to sort of parse out those two things. Alex, go ahead. Sorry.
So the word insisted, or that's not a word I would use, and I think that's not what I do. When it comes to the grip, and I feel like I've absorbed something from all these people that we've talked about. I'm more of a Carl Welty guy. I show grip after grip after grip, and then I show their grip, and I'll say, let's look at commonalities. What are these players doing the same? What are they doing different? What are you doing? Are there outliers with the grip? Jordan Spieth does not have a grip that looks like Tiger Woods' grip, but yet they're both Masters champions, right? But I would say I look at all of the great players from, well, you name it. If Luke Donald is talking about the grip, I say that video. Luke Donald was former #1 in the world. I want to have pictures of his grip and hear what he says. Seve Ballesteros, Nick Faldo. There's a comment, Greg Norman. You guys might be saying, hey, you're talking about the legends of golf. I am. How are they? Are they doing anything the same? They're doing almost everything the same when it comes to the grip. So I will try to lead my student towards, why do you think Greg Norman holds the club that way? Do you think there's any purpose? Does he get something from it? Of course he does, right? Nick Faldo, why does he hold it with the heel pad on top? Why does he have his hand positioned in such a way? It's all for a purpose. And I think the purpose ultimately is get the club to swing in a repeatable fashion where they can have a consistent path and face. That's golf. You talked about David Duval. He might have a grip that's a little bit different than the other guys. And that's okay. It's okay to be individual. But I try to steer people, especially new to the game, towards a grip that is really accepted by all teachers that I've ever heard talk about the grip. Harmon, it doesn't matter. We can name them all. They all talk about the grip very much the same way. And so there's never an insistence on how to hold the club. I would just say this is how the great players hold the club. I think that's where we should start to try to get you, because we want to maximize what you can do as a player, right? So grip has nothing to do with how tall you are, how short you are, how wide your shoulders are. We can all put our hands on really kind of the same way. And I encourage them to put that, place their hands on in a way so that they can swing the golf club. Maximum speed, maximum precision. So that's, believe me, How did I learn my grip? I just copied all the good players.
Okay.
Isn't that what you're supposed to do?
By the way, can I get a drum roll? Okay, you ready for this one? And you know this, but you're just not thinking about it right now. Carl Welty's son, Craig, played what?
Yeah, left hand low.
Cross-handed. That's something, isn't it? I mean, what a legend, Carl, once again, to allow and not I know that's not the right word, insist. Thanks for that. But that's kind of what I'm thinking in my mind. But Carl just didn't insist on him holding it conventional. He allowed him to come up with his own grip. And we're seeing that. Matt Fitzpatrick, who just won the U.S. Open, chips and pitches cross-handed. We've seen Vijay Singh cross-handed.
Chris Couch did that.
Couch, Stadler, I saw in person. I had serious double take. I went to the local tour stop. Right? When you see that, am I really seeing that? Yeah, I'm seeing that. Wow. So pretty amazing that Carl's son would play, and quite well too. Carl's son, real good player, played college golf up in the Northwest. I can't put a finger on the school.
All-American.
He was an All-American. Yeah, he's teaching now.
Yeah,
Carl up in
Carl's machine now.
Oh, that's right. He has Carl's machine.
Yeah,
we should go take a trip up and see him sometime. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, Carl, if he saw a successful player doing something that's out of the norm, if he had that on his video, that would be a rule that we're not going to change that. So
in honor of Carl, I was telling Alex a little bit today, I used the Carl Welty method. I had a student, real quick, that was taking it, as we see a lot, inside on the back, kind of pushing his arms across his body a little bit too much. And so otherwise he's swinging pretty good. He's got a little cast motion. And so I have a number of tour players in my, library in my phone. These phones are amazing how many videos you can store in them. So I'm going through and I show the first one that came up, Alex Noren. I taped him at the U.S. Open. It came to the country club last year. And Alex had conventional, his arms kind of away from his body. And then I remembered Carl. And I thought, Cal Pete. Now there's a name. Calvin Pete. So I know Calvin had a little bit more of an unconventional, especially backswing, due to, I think, an injury from when he was young. His arm, one of his arms, I have to look it up, but didn't move.
The left arm, yeah.
Was it the left arm was bent maybe or something? And so I put him aside Cal Pete, and I think Carl was like with me at the moment. They looked identical.
Hmm.
I mean, I went from this is it. You need to get your arms, away, in that conventional way, to like, oh, wait a minute, Kelly. And then the lesson morphed into lower body focus, where his lower body, his left leg was kind of crossing his body a little too much. So we got his lower body a little more stable. And now the lesson shifted to more of a sort of a good sequence of motion in the downswing, which kind of cleaned up a little bit of that cast. So it's just kind of interesting how the focus, what to focus on. And I think Carl, he was must have been a very humble person to not want to jump to conclusions, basically. Because that's, it's in our nature as teachers, and what we want to help, to sort of jump to a conclusion and want to be maybe right, not want to be right, but we want to help our student, or even help ourselves. But sometimes the answer is a different place than we might originally, think it is. And Carl, boy, did he dig.
Oh yeah, he got everybody better. I said earlier that he was a better pro coach, but it didn't matter who you were. Carl got you better.
Yeah,
he was such a skilled teacher. I mean, just the years and years of experience of making sure he only allowed the student to work on the important things, in his view, and center contact being one of them. If you can't hit the center of the ball with on the right part of the club, then that's a big fundamental. And so that's when the swing tape the club face tape came out, and spent lots of time with the students.
I had one more quick. I gotta share one more quick breakthrough that happened today at the range. Face tape, because Alex and I have been talking about face tape. Blue painter tape. Lady was struggling with her chipping. Put the painter's tape on the face. First shot. Super nice lady. So he kind of joke around a little bit with her too. So, okay, let's take a look at the face. No mark anywhere. Okay, so she's hitting the leading edge. Sometimes I joke with my students, what part of the club is the face? Is it the soul or the face? No, all in good fun. She hits another shot. Painter's tape is blank. Well, you're saving me on this painter's tape. Appreciate it. She hits another, maybe one more shot. Little mark, like just over the leading edge. So then I say, Mr. Know-It-All, I said, you know what? Let me put painter's tape on my face, and I'm going to take a couple of chips and see if this makes a mark. Maybe it's not making a mark. So I'd happened to make a mark, and it was decent. It was decently centered. So I'm like, well, see, and I knew I could joke with her. See, it's not the tape. But anyway, that was just funny. But what we did was the hands, what she thought was her hands went in the same direction as the club. So she was moving her, that typical sort of scoopy look with the hands. And I just demonstrated that the hands curve in toward the body as the club goes down the target line. So the hands are moving in a different direction than the club head through impact. And all of a sudden, she started getting that great contact on the face. And she hit a couple really good ones. And I always remember Jim saying, he had that, just waiting for that one good shot to say, okay, let's end on that note, right? So I pulled the Jim McClain and said, okay, let's end on that note. But no, the painter's tape is a way for players to sort of teach themselves a little bit, which is a theme of Carl's that we've been talking about throughout the show. Center face contact. the sort of forgotten fundamental, as Jim McLean talked about a lot. Center face, center con. Let's see you go up and down the line and put that painter's tape on it. Let's see you hit the middle of the face, just for starters.
Yeah.
So
it's
if they don't, they ask me. Then, as Jim talked about with Carl's method, was a Socratic method. So I used it a little bit. She said, "Well, why am I not hitting the face?" I'm like, "I don't know. Like, why aren't you?" Let's get her involved in the process a little bit too. So, all right. Well, what do you think, Alex? Anything else?
I think it was. I think it was. I think we should wrap up because people definitely
Let's do it.
don't want to. They don't want to watch a 2-hour podcast.
I told you I was good at editing. We'll edit it. We might make it 2 shows.
So,
yeah, anytime you want to have me back to discuss the 8 or 9 things of Carl, let me know.
oh, you're coming back, man. You don't have a choice.
Yeah, we got you on speed dial, Joe.
With that bucket hat on. You still got the
Yeah,
bucket hat?
I don't have the bucket hat still. I need one of those. But yeah,
And that bucket hat, man.
I wore that thing out.
That's awesome.
Oh,
I love how you kept your shirt. That is awesome.
No, I got a couple of them for certain. At least 2 of them, maybe 4. But yeah, this is
You know what we could do? I mean, I see right now, I don't know your views, but I see 2 boxes on the top and I see 1 box on the bottom.
Yep.
We need to fill that 4th box. I think we need to reach out to Jim and see if he'd come on. Yeah. He might. He might. So we'll ask him. We'll bug him, and we'll see if he'd like to do it. He's been super supportive to us, just generally speaking. See him at the PGA show and say hello and things like that. So
that's
thanks.
One thing we didn't say a whole lot here was the genius of Jim McLean. I mean, you can't value what he contributed to all of golf and from an instruction standpoint. I think he was a pioneer in putting it all together. He's got a little bit of experience from all the teaching I guess hours that he put in with some of the greatest teachers out there, and one of those which is Carl Welty, but Jim is the one that put the corridors together, and of the parameters that is taught by many in today's world because of it. I mean, he really brought it to light to the industry.
Jim believed in what he called towering competence, and
Jim,
and he has that.
Jackie Burke, Ken Venturi. I mean, the names go on and on, right?
Yeah, and he loved learning too from what we can all. You talked about some of the teachers coming up. I think this is huge. He loved learning from people outside of golf. He would go up to the U.S. Olympic Training Center and see what they were doing with Olympic weightlifting. He would talk to football. He talked to coaches, talk to football coaches. Coaching. Because that's part of what we do, right? We coach, so we talk to a lot of coaches. So he's outside the box when it comes to learning about anything that may influence, playing better golf.
Well, for sure. I think next show we can talk a little bit more about him.
Okay, let's do it. We'll reach out to him too, even if he just knows that we're doing it. I think that would be really cool.
He definitely was the hardest working golf instructor I've ever seen.
And he's still just as committed today.
Yeah, he's
amazing.
I'm gonna sign off with a little Jim McLean nod. Joe, we are so happy to have you on. We really appreciate you taking the time and being here, and we really hope you're going to come back and join us very soon for another episode.
Absolutely. I appreciate being on here and don't want to undervalue the knowledge that's in front of these two. They have the background. I spent so many hours with them and talking golf, and they have the passion. And certainly, if you spend time with Alex or Joe on a lesson tee, you're going to gain. And they have the right approach and the heart for the game. And that's there's a lot of history and their knowledge, and I would encourage anybody to spend time with them.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for those words, and really appreciate you coming on. It was great to reconnect, and let's stay in close touch, huh?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Alex, as always.
Until next time.
Okay, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.